So my name is Cathy Thiriet. I work in the Canadian Nuclear Laboratories in Chalk River. I'm leading a project which is called the Advanced Fuel Manufacturing Project in the Canadian Nuclear Fuel Laboratories, under which this study has been conducted by my colleagues Andrew Bergeron and Brent Krieger. The reason why I'm also here talking to you today is first that Andrew gave this presentation 2 weeks ago in Prague, so it was kind of my turn to travel up to here in Europe. And the second reason I wanted to, and I was very keen to attend this conference, is that I'm also involved in the development of our capability in Chalk River for studying molten salt thermophysical properties. So, but let's talk about additive manufacturing, which is a bit a different topic than what we have heard so far, as I will speak about thorium in solid form. I will give you a bit of background of the reason why we started this work in the Canadian Nuclear Labs. I will give you a bit more information on the concept of the 3D printing method we use, which is called stereolithography. I will describe the material used for this study, provide you some results, discuss, and conclusion. As you may know, some advanced nuclear fuel concepts are being developed for better fuel performance, to improve proliferation resistance of or fuel security, as I should say maybe, increase safety and accident tolerance. You may have heard about those programs talking about accident tolerance fuel. And some of those advanced nuclear fuel may be considered as recycled or are recyclable. Fuel design may be based on advanced materials, on inhomogeneous structure, or have some complex geometries. Many of them can be fabricated via conventional processes applied to more traditional nuclear ceramic fuel. This is the reason why we started this investigation in CNL on additive manufacturing of thoria fuel using a commercially available stereolithography-based 3D printer with photopolymer resin. Why we initially wanted to start 3D printing nuclear fuel based on thoria is because thoria has similar optical property than other material, ceramic material, which has been printed so far using this 3D printing method. So, a bit of definition. What do we call additive manufacturing, commonly known as 3D printing? Well, it sounds a bit more professional to say additive manufacturing, so this is what we use in our world. So according to the ASTM standard, additive manufacturing is the process of joining materials to make objects from 3D model data, usually layer upon layer, as opposed to the more traditional subtractive manufacturing technology like machining. There are many technologies using additive manufacturing out there. You may be familiar with some of them, or maybe not. The most common one is called material extrusion. But for this study, we actually use vat polymerization, under which the stereolithography fall under. If you have some dental work and unfortunately sitting on this chair like the guy here, you may actually have experienced what is stereolithography. Because the dentist here is actually using some UV light to cure some materials which has been put in cavity, for example, to make some bonding between your tooth and the material filling your tooth. more seriously, these slides provide the principle behind stereolithography. So the stereolithography uses actually a UV laser, which selectively cure or polymerize photosensitive resin. In this sketch here, it shows you the principle of this process. So a build platform is lowered in the bottom of this tank filled with UV curable resin. And in our case, we change the formulation of this resin by loading some solid powder, Thoria powder. So we lower this built platform right at the bottom of this tank, where a UV laser traces the design of the first layer of the object to be printed through a windows at the bottom of this tank. So the first layer adheres to the build platform, and successive layers adhere to the previous one to build slowly the object to be printed as the build platform indexes in the vertical direction in our case. On your left-hand side, this is the printer we used in the lab. It's from the company Formlabs, and it's a model Form 2. And we placed this, obviously, this printer in a fume hood because we were using Thoria. So this slide shows you the different manufacturing steps for these processes. Obviously, the first step is to define the model of the object to be printed. So we use the traditional 3D CAD software for that. And then we use a different software to actually slide the object in defined height to be printed, right? And define all the characteristics of the laser, like for having a proper height of the laser of the layer to be printed. In our case, we actually decided to print a little cube like this made of Thoria. Why we choose this geometry is because obviously it looks like quite easy to measure any geometric dimension and compare with our 3D model. And also, obviously, it can't be made by any traditional manufacturing techniques. We also have to print a base with some structural support in order to be able to print this part here. So that is defined, this model is defined during the first step of this process. During our trial, we actually printed 2 of those objects on the same platform, and it took about 3.5 hours to be printed, which seems to be a bit long, but I mean, it was a proof of concept so far. Once the parts are printed, we remove any excess of resin by washing them in with isopropyl alcohol and allow the part to dry in air overnight. Then we place the part in this little box here, which is a UV light curing box, to ensure that the polymerization of the resin of the part are completed. Then we cut the structure, the support structure, and finally we have 2 last steps, which is heat treatment of the in this process, which consists of burning any resins in air, and you have the condition here. And because we want to obtain quite dense, as dense as possible object, we have a final step, which is a sintering of those parts. Now let's talk about the material being used in this study. So as I said, we use the commercially available photopolymer resin from the company Tethon 3D, which allow us to actually load this resin with solid powder. So we change the formulation by adding thorium dioxide powder in our case. I gave here some characteristic of the powder used, and as I said, we mix the resin and thoria powder in a low-intensity turbulage mixer. In this, for this trial, it was in those proportions, which, and I will discuss a bit that later. So we actually mixed those two components for 4 or 6 hours, I believe it was. Yeah. And I just want to mention here, talking about the resin, is that the main component of the resin is carbon, because it's a hydrocarbon liquid, and it contains some tin and phosphor, which is used in the photoinitiator and catalyzer. And this is important for later to mention that. So here is our little cube. So it was, as I mentioned, 1 cubic centimeter volume parts. So on your left-hand side is those parts still hanging on the build platform. And on your right is actually those cube after the last step of the process after sintering. First kind of characterization of those 3D printed parts are given in this table, where we measure quite easily using calipers the different dimensions of those cubes. And as you can see, before sintering, the dimension of the cubes are slightly larger than the dimension of the 3D model, with a maximum measured deviation about 3%. We observe that after sintering, there is a quite large shrinkage, and we observe actually also slight distortion during these sintering steps. And this linear shrinkage is depending on the direction we are looking at, but it's about 18 to 23%, which is kind of the order of magnitude of shrinkage observed in when we do UO2 pellets, for example. So that was kind of expected. You may have seen in the photograph shown in the previous slides that the surface of the finish of the final parts are a bit rough, but which is about 10 times higher than the accepted surface finish for CANDU fuel. But my understanding is that those measurements will be acceptable for a light water reactor surface finish. Anyway, and the surface finish is also depending on the orientation of the measuring path in relation of the build line of the cube. Obviously, when we add layer upon layer, there is some anisotropy in the process too. We were pleased to actually, after our quite first trials, to observe that the final part were quite dense, with a value of about 90% of the theoretical density, which is still a bit low compared to, again, the requirement for any nuclear fuel, which is over 95% of the theoretical density. But actually, we currently working on improving the density, and this density was measured by immersion. When we wanted to know a bit more about the microstructure of the final parts, we actually examined those cubes after slicing along one of the face, and after having put those parts in a resin, in epoxy, and polished and so on. And we did a composite cross-sectional image of the 3D printed cube face using some software to stitch the different image. Anyway, and what we observe is that there is an apparent layer structure of the cube, especially, especially around here, and we can observe cracks also in parallel and normal direction compared to the built lines. What was actually found in the literature when on showing result over ceramic using this technique is it's appeared that some remaining monomer resin in the bulk of the part could be still not polymerized and not reached by the UV light laser. And what happened is during the last two steps of the process, when we heat those parts at high temperature, it appears that we can polymerize the remaining monomer resin, inducing some strain in the object, and lead to cracking. So it was not a surprise to observe those cracks. And finally, we did some chemical analysis and compare of the final part after sintering, and compare those with the thoria powder impurity contents. And we were pleased to see and to demonstrate that the carbon content in the sintered part was lower than the starting powder, and no tin was found in the final part. So we are pretty comfortable by saying that all the photocurable resin material was removed from the sintered part. So there is no impurity due to this process. So in conclusion and discussion, so I hope I show you that we successfully were able to use additive manufacturing to produce some thoria parts with complex geometries using a commercially available stereolithography-based 3D printer and photopolymer resin. And to the best of my knowledge, it's the first time that has been done. I have heard that in Oak Ridge National Lab, they're actually working on 3D printing urania, but no paper or no result in the open literature has been published yet. So. But as you noticed that there is some improvement to be made. It was those tests were actually the proof of concept that this type of manufacturing could be done. But we need to increase the sintered density of the printing part. We need to also decrease the surface roughness, which is possible by adjusting the thickness layer of during the printing process, and adjusting some parameter of the laser, like energy deposit and power used for the laser. We saw also that there is some internal cracks that can be mitigated by adjusting certainly the heating step, or also increasing the duration, the time in the UV curable box, maybe. And we have to mitigate also non-uniform distortion after sintering, which could be also be done by certainly adding some support structure during this sintering step. So this innovative manufacturing technology actually allow us to eliminate geometry constraint and give a tool for a fuel designer to actually optimize their fuel concept for improving fuel performance and safety. And we think that it has a good potential application in the future for being crazy about what we want to put in reactor. I think it's, oh yes. I listed here a few recent publications which may be relevant for you. We did quite a bit of work on thoria and also thorium uranium mixed oxide. Oops, sorry. Yeah, those papers here. Obviously, it's still in solid form because we are not quite there yet on molten salt area, except that we presented, my colleague Dan presented our status on the development of molten salt capability at Canadian Nuclear Laboratories. He presented that he gave this talk in the molten salt reactor workshop 3 weeks ago. Sorry. So maybe some of you may have heard this presentation. And I wanted to mention to you that my colleagues, Muna Saudi, also prepared a poster at NUMAT, it was 2 weeks ago, reporting some result on a measurement of thermal diffusivity on liquid, which is more relevant for you. And I have all those publications in PDF form, so you are welcome to come to me, and I will send that by email. Thank you for your attention.
Questions? Yes.
Yeah, I think 3D printing is really cool.
Yeah, it's cool, but we say additive manufacturing.
Why are you doing this? Do you have some customers asking you to do this, or is the, apart from just the pure research, just to do it because we can? What's the short or medium-term practical application? And the second part of that is 3D printing is fairly expensive and tends to come across capacity questions quite quickly. It's difficult to produce enough of the product using that process for a high volume product like fuel pellets. So is there any issue to that question in terms of being able to produce solid nuclear fuel in enough volume with 3D?
Well, we consider that the first step is actually to demonstrate that this technology can be applied, right? So it's what we were trying to demonstrate here. And obviously, after that, we have to convince that that can be done in an economical way, and also time. And but when you consider that you can optimize the design of your fuel to increase heat transfer, it means that you can leave your fuel longer in reactor, higher burnup, because the temperature at the center of your fuel pellet is lower. There is an economical advantage there, right? You decrease also safety margin. So you can, instead of changing your assembly in LWR every 3 years, you may change that, shift around maybe 4 or 5 years, I don't know. But this work was undertaken really for see what can be done. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the 3D printing of fuel might bring interesting options for research reactors. However, how do these products age when they are under radiation? Is this different from normal fuel, or?
Well, it will. for sure much more study than just taking the measurement with caliper need to be done. But the first step we try to take is first reach the density. Reach a higher density and better surface finish. And then, for sure, we need to complete some mechanical property testing and then put that in reactor, see how it behaves. We saw that there is some anisotropic in the part on how the final part is printed. So all those points need to be addressed for sure.
Question there? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a related question. The next step, I think, would be to add a second material. Can you do that? Or do you want to? Are you going to do that?
Yeah, well, actually, we try to print a mix of thorium and uranium right now. Yeah.
Also with the metal, mix it with a refractor.
Yeah, that as well, but not. I don't think it's achievable with this type of technology. We have another group in CNL looking at using a different additive manufacturing, which is a laser consolidation, where you actually spray powder and actually melt on the go. Right, you may be familiar with that, shaking your head. But one of application which could be also quite relevant is using additive manufacturing to print a fuel element for in-reactor testing, where you can actually incorporate some sensor, or you can modify the shape of your cladding so that you can actually hook some sensor or fiber optics or things like that, or even consider that, or even print with some cavity in your fuel and stuff like that for in-reactor testing or out-reactor testing.
Okay. Yes, Frederick.
Can I ask about the sourcing of the powder? What kind of powder it is? And
The source of my powder, the Thoria powder, or
yes.
Yeah. Well, we have quite a few stock powder in stock in our labs, but this particular powder I think was coming from Battle company, but we have other powder coming from Rhodia as well.
All right, let's thank Catherine again.
Thank you.